Unfortunately, another day in another Boko Haram massacre. This time it's in Dalori, Nigeria. And unfortunately, it's not getting nearly as much coverage as other attacks have gotten throughout the world. So obviously after Paris, a lot of different countries played the French national anthem, as well they should have. It was moving, and we all should be in solidarity with Paris and France after the attacks against them. But in this case, 86 people killed, and in most brutal fashion. And we should show just as much solidarity to the people of Nigeria after this horrible attack. So let me explain a little bit what happened here. The Associated Press said it spoke to a survivor who said he watched Boko Haram's extremists firebomb huts and heard the screams of children burning to death. Okay. Now, Boko Haram, I have explained before, is probably the worst terrorist organization in the world, I think including ISIS. Now, they've pledged loyalty to ISIS simply because ISIS is getting more press coverage, but the reality is Boko Haram might have killed more people, and the words Boko Haram and their creed is Western education is evil and sinful. Now, I can't think of a worse idea and a worse creed than that, because first of all, it's not Western education, it's education, period. Math is not from the West or the East, and if you're against math, science, and any kind of learning, which unsurprising for religious extremists they are, well, then you're against all advancement. And the fact that they're willing to attack schools, attack teachers, and even attack the children is particularly loathsome. Now, these are Muslim radicals. Now, I get called an Islam apologist from time to time from insane people, even though I think that Islam is completely wrong. These radicals are monstrous. The one thing I'm asking you to do is not to categorize the people they murder in the same group as them. Perhaps a little too hard to understand for some folks, but I'll get back to that in a second. So now let me tell you more of this gruesome attack. Mohammed Kanar, the area coordinator of Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, said 86 bodies, many of them charred and riddled with bullets, were collected by Sunday afternoon. See, for example, Mohammed Kanar, I'm pretty sure, is Muslim, and he's against Boko Haram and outraged by what Boko Haram has done. And they attack fellow Muslims, they attack Christians, they attack a lot of different people, obviously, Boko Haram does. Soldiers who spoke to the AP on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak to the news media said government troops arrived at Dalori but could not overpower the better armed militants. They said the extremists only retreated after more troops arrived with heavier weapons. So this is part of my frustration. Now, look, you know that I don't think that bombing is the answer, and more military force is not always the answer. But at the same time, I've said targeted force can work. I'm in favor of special forces. So I don't want to just drop bombs from the sky and then wind up hitting the same kids that these guys are hitting and then go, oops, oh, it turns out now their families hate us. Now more people have joined them and are fighting against us. That is a counterproductive strategy. On the other hand, these guys are going into villages and they're not retreating until they are met with greater force on the ground. Now, do I want to invade Nigeria? Of course not. We want to help Nigeria. So we can't do simplistic things like, just go with bombing, just go with drones, because they're oftentimes counterproductive. We can't go with simplistic ideas like, I don't know, invade them, take them over, ground troops, right? But can we bring in significant forces to fight against these guys? Yes, but it would involve more risk to us. But if these guys aren't worth fighting, who is? And isn't it weird that we hear nonstop, ISIS, ISIS, ISIS? And well, we should. They're monstrous in their own right. But yet you'd almost never hear of Boko Haram. Republican candidates in every debate, ISIS, ISIS, oh my God, we got to do something, our military is weak. Why aren't we fighting against these Muslim radical jihadists? Well, here's Muslim radical jihadists. They burn those kids alive. Apparently not much interest there. Not that close to our allies. They don't look as much like us. Not as much strategic interest in the area. And all of a sudden, there are no troops there to help them. So I'm not, again, the answer isn't as simple, press the button, bomb away. But boy, in situations like that, it turns out maybe special forces could be incredibly helpful. That's why I've been on that side for a long time. And that's not the only answer, by the way. The other answer is education. They're against education. We're for education. Every time they bomb a school, we should build 10 more. And when they see the American flag, the people of Nigeria and nearby areas, they should think help is on the way. Education's on the way. Schools are on the way. Opportunity for my kids is on the way. So that it is absolutely clear Boko Haram, the bad guys. The guys that they tell us that are the bad guys, the Western education, the Americans, the West, etc. Turns out all they do is help us. Wouldn't that be great if that was the message? Would that have an effect over the long run? I think it would. Yes, I'm not naive enough to think that overnight you send in some help on Tuesday and all of a sudden everybody in Nigeria is on our side or in the nearby areas and we won over every single person on Wednesday. No. But they play a long game. They do their counter-education. They do their propaganda and tell you how terrible education is. Well, let's fight on those same grounds because they think it works and it has worked for them. And we could do a hell of a lot more with our resources. Go bring those people help. Go bring them education. You want to know how terrible Boko Haram is? They've killed about 20,000 people so far and driven 2.5 million Nigerians from their homes over a 6-year period. Okay, I'm just asking for a little bit of parity here. We should be outraged by what happened in Paris. We should be outraged by what happened in San Bernardino. But we should also be outraged by what's happening in Nigeria. And we should have smart solutions to all of those.